Antifa are middle class, and this post from Reddit, I think it's one of the Antifa socialist pages on Reddit, has been going around Twitter. I think it's worth talking about because there's some very interesting information in here. So they start with, I wrote this after feeling the need to put my thoughts on the anti-fascist action I took part in Portland. This was after the Battle of Portland that Antifa lost decisively. My thread was removed due to brigading and my account is new. Being a person of colour veteran anti-fascist perspective on what went down and what we need to do going forward. I was one of the people who turned up to oppose the reactionaries and neo-fascists from Patriots, Prayer and Proud Boys, specifically the 542. I don't really know much about Patriots Prayer, but honestly they just look like conservatives, who are not just the typical reactionaries of the rank-and-file Proud Boys, but display open Naz and exterminationist signs and symbols during their pathetic get-togethers. I haven't seen anything like that from any of these groups. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I've just never seen it. I don't think it's representative of what they believe. I was involved in the Black Panther Party in the late 60s and 70s and took part in various anti-white supremacist actions, one of which landed me in prison and ultimately the bid was what got me away from Leninism and into anarchism after James Carr gave me his copy of The Conquest of Bread. I've read The Conquest of Bread, it's dumb. It's to solve a problem that was solved over 100 years ago. And it's ridiculous. I'll probably do a video on that at some point. I feel like half a century of political action and fighting white supremacy gives me the right to lay down some of my thoughts down. Off the bat, I am really annoyed at the quality of turnout here, as opposed to those in previous actions like Charlottesville and Virginia. This was not only dangerous, but it also made us look terrible. Fascism feeds off displays of strength and victories. I don't think these people are promoting fascism. This was certainly a victory for these scum. And honestly, any political movement feeds off displays of victories and strength. The number of people who turned up for the action was fine considering the small number of the enemy, but the types of people who decided to show up, but did nothing and actively hindered the ability for the action to be mobile and effective was way too high. Okay, now, I mean, this is important. Considering the small number of the enemy, I mean, these aren't really your enemy, these are your fellow citizens, and these people certainly do not see you that way. These people see you as enemies, and you have to remember that. In the olden days, people who turned up could fight. They were working class or lumpen, they were tough, they put the fear of God into fascist scum. I once saw an ironworker punch a fascist so hard his orbital just folded into itself. Usually we were much more game and the enemy was full of middle class lames. Oh, how times have changed. But I guess the problem when you're calling the working class straight white males and telling them to shut the fuck up and let the borders be open because they don't know what's good for them because of all their goddamn privilege have really driven them away from you, haven't they? Now the situation is half the people charging with us are 110-pound white girls who have no business being there. That's sexist. Don't throw punches and simply break any semblance of a compact line, which leads us to being flanked and pushing us into a pocket. Yeah. Women aren't very good on combat. They're not built for it. It's just biology. Secondly, there were almost zero blue-collar types there. And there were only around the 10 black guys that I saw. The majority looked like upper-middle-class university kids. Imagine my surprise to hear that Antifa are made up of upper-middle-class university kids. A bunch of champagne socialists. LARPing anarchists, if you will. Again, what are these people doing forming the basis of our street actions against these people? These are the best you've got. This is what socialism in capitalist societies looks like. People who feel guilty for their parents' hard work, and so they feel that they have to try and tear down the capitalist patriarchy, because it's a white supremacist society, blah 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 blah. There are several videos of these types being knocked out cold. There are, and they're great. Even when they are attacking the scum with batons and bars. This is exactly what they want. Of course it is. What do we want? We want to knock our opponents out cold. Being able to portray the revolutionary opposition to them as privileged soft white people. They don't have to try and portray you as that. That's what you are. Not you personally, obviously. That's what your comrades are. They are privileged soft white people. They are weak college students who have no revolutionary capacity. But they can LARP and get themselves kicked in the fucking head. To an uneducated working class white guy who sees these, the fascists, they're not fascists, they're patriots, come off as tough working class Joes beating the shit out of soft privileged idiots. It's only because that's exactly what's happening, isn't it? That's exactly what's happening. It is tough working class Joes who are now tired of you trying to tear their fucking country down. by opening the borders and removing any semblance of liberalism from what was a Western liberal democracy, and still is, obviously. Another issue is a lack of strategy. We pushed a dozen of the 542 into an alley behind this bakery, and we were pushing them back on themselves. A bunch of people waving flags then decided to sprint into the middle of us, and then break away once the fascists pushed back, leaving a giant hole for them to escape through and rejoin a bunch of the others in the street and outnumber us. From now on, we need designated marshals to organise and direct people like we had in the 90s. That's not very anarchist, is it? Sounds a bit hierarchical. How are you going to choose them? How are you going to legitimise this authority in an ideological framework that despises authority? Good luck with that. Sounds like you're about to end anarchism before anyone else has to. For the NPA and the KKK actions that were highly effective at making us able to control enemies and overwhelm them, despite us being outnumbered. I mean, this guy's talking good strategy, I think. When a bunch of kids who lack street smarts and any fighting ability are charging around, all it does is make us look weak. And that's because they are weak. That's all they are. Even really bad fighters can be effective when they have some direction. Lastly, we need to discuss inclusion. I saw several people of colour, including 3 extremely brave Muslim women in hijab, who were treated like shit by all the white people who treated them like ghosts and made no attempt to even talk to them. Wow, I can't believe the Democrats are the real racists. Who could have imagined that? Have the Democrats ever not been racist? Just out of interest, it's all the Democrats seem to, for me, is just the direction their racism is going in. It's either we hate black people or suddenly we hate white people. Can we just not hate people because of their race? Is there a chance that, I mean, why not do that instead? I'm really curious, but anyway. They were holding signs and shouting at some of the Patriots Prayer people, and several white people stood away from them, and when the women tried to interact with them, they straight up ignored them. Okay. Inclusion and respect isn't just moral, but it leads to increased participation from people of colour and other groups who, in my experience, make far better comrades in a melee than white yuppie hipsters. Well, honestly, literally anyone is going to make far better comrade in a melee than these people. So many of the people at the action were posers and ran back at any actual confrontation. One time this happened, a young white guy who could actually throw down got knocked out because all the people around him ran back to the curb and left him alone against 3 guys. Yep. Sorry for the rant, I know I'm probably going to get chewed out by white people for being an emotional nigger, but this has really pissed me off. I don't blame you, mate. I would be really pissed off if my team were miscarrying in this way too. More than that, though, it has made me worried. It has emboldened fascists online. Oh my god. Look, everyone who opposes you isn't a fascist. In fact, I bet you haven't actually met a fascist in this latest round. Maybe in the 60s and 70s, but I really doubt you have now. They are having a field day. More failed actions like these and they will be emboldened. These fascist pieces of shit are not the soft Richard Spencer types. Richard Spencer took the punch. You know, at the end of the day, you say what you like about him, but you didn't get him down, did you? And I don't like Richard Spencer, so... But he probably is quite soft. They are working in lumpen proles and they will kick the shit out of most types of people we had at the action. My wife was hit with a rock and I have a few cuts and bruises, but we were both fine. I hope the people who did really well are okay, as some of them have pretty gnarly wounds. I really don't know what else to say. I feel really angry and violated that these pieces of shit can now turn up, promote white supremacy, you mean Western democracy, and beat us. This never would have happened even a few years ago, never mind when anti-fascist actions could cripple a fascist day out easily. Well, you're not opposing fascists. That's your problem. First off, you're not opposing fascists. These people are patriots. Really, if you were to sit them down and give them a political test, they'd probably end up as classical liberals. They're conservatives or Republicans. That's what they are. They're not fascists, you lunatic. But obviously, if you're a far-left communist, then you're going to see everything as a fascist. But yeah, I'm afraid your team have become the privileged, soft, white kids that you despised so much back in the 60s and 70s. They've joined you. They're not much use, are they? But at least they're making good points. At least you're making good points. These people are just middle-class white kids who are LARPing for the sake of LARPing. They want to feel moral, and they're getting their heads kicked in doing it. And fine. Don't go around starting violence. That's my opinion on the subject. But yeah, Antifa, I think Antifa are going to start becoming less and less of a force. And I think this is demonstration that that's happening. And good.